At the start of this year, you posted a video on LinkedIn stating that your New Year's resolutions were to, number 1, be more targeted, and number 2, be more ambitious. So more targeted and more ambitious. Why were these two things important to you?
So I think within the sustainability space, there is a lot of noise, and it's hard sometimes to know what's really going on, who's sincere about what they're trying to achieve, and what are the drivers within companies and indeed that individuals have.
What's the term? Greenwashing?
Greenwashing, yeah. And thankfully there's some regulations coming in, some anti-greenwashing regulations which support our business because we support transparent action on sustainability. So I think being targeted for me means, firstly, who is it that we want to speak to? And secondly, what is the message and the proposition that we want to put across? And how can we create value in other ways for those people? So that's the targeted side. And on the ambition side, I think one of my observations, so I've only been in sustainability for 5 years, people who I respect hugely who have been in the industry for a lot longer, 10, 20 and 30 years in some cases, are often jaded because they are very mission-driven, purpose-driven, and have a strong sense of ethics and are frustrated because the world hasn't woken up properly to what we need to do. The systems are not in place for us to do what we need to do about climate change. So I think it's natural sometimes for people coming into sustainability to sort of start off with a level of ambition and then have it sort of reduced down as they get frustrated and they see all the barriers. And I guess what I was saying with that message was, no, we need to retain the ambition, shoot for the stars, unite around what's important to us, and that's how we'll make progress on.
Do you know Ben Whatley?
Ben Whatley, yes, I do. Yeah.
He's been on this podcast, and we had this similar conversation around sustainability. Yeah. And he was saying that he only really invests in things which could have a meaningful and massive impact in that space, because there's hundreds and hundreds of deals that he looks at, and it's basically a facade. It's like a pretend sustainability type of angle, but in reality, even if they executed to a massive level, it still really wouldn't change much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's lots of different schools of thought, and Ben is someone I've got huge respect for, and he's absolutely galvanising investment into early stage sustainability businesses. But I think he would also say that there are different schools of thought as to how you spread your investments. I think some businesses have very obvious opportunities for huge impact, but massive barriers to getting there. Others, it's less obvious, but they might just get there. I think it's really important to follow the VT mantra of investing quite widely, investing where you can offer relatively scarce benefit, whether that's because of your connections or your insights or your network, but just to get behind organisations that have the opportunity both to have meaningful impact on climate change and other sustainability considerations, but also, an exciting commercial return.
But even if you can only add a small amount of value, but if you've got another 30 angels which can also offer a small amount of value, combined together, it becomes like an army that's backing a founder. And when you combine their networks, their capital, their expertise, the introductions they can make, the other businesses that they run that they can plug into and help, instantly you've got an idea which can scale very, very quickly if executed on correctly.
I think that's really exciting. Yeah, I think that's the really exciting part of Ventures Together, is that you have potentially up to 200 investors. The reality is fewer than that in each investment, but you'll have a few who really get to know the founder and the business well and are, at that founder's shoulder, right behind them, willing to support. But then you'll have something of an army behind them who can be tapped into by the leading investors as and when. So it's a great community. Yeah.
I feel like we're accidentally making an ad for Ventures Together.
Tom will be happy.
Yeah, I'll send this to Tom. For those that don't know, VT is a syndicate of angel investors that in the UK that put money together and help turn ideas into reality and hopefully change the world. So your current company, Pawprint, Christian, you've managed to get some really, really big brand names like Vodafone and Bain & Co. And then your past company, Lingo24, you had Patagonia and Eventbrite. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs on sales? How can people secure big brands like these?
So I think founder-run businesses, the founder needs to learn sales, needs to understand sales, and needs to get used to asking lots of questions of key buyers and getting in front of them. That's one piece of advice. There are different ways to do that. I'm a big fan of round tables where you bring a small number of customers together, perhaps with some prospects, and you have a very informal chat about the sorts of challenges people face. That's a great way of building relationships. I think sales is evolving in terms of how it works, but fundamentally, so the channels to get to people, the conventions around messaging and all those sorts of things, but fundamentally, people continue to buy from people at the highest enterprise level. And as a founder, you need to understand deeply and empathise deeply with the challenges that your customers face.
And once you've got a group of prospects in a room and you're doing like a round table or a dinner or a discussion or an event, are you then turning that into content, into like a white paper or into some kind of video? Like what would you recommend people do as a next step, or would they just follow up afterwards and keep those relationships? Like how would you do it if it was you personally?
Yeah, so we do that, and I would say all of the above really. The priority depends a bit on the profile of customer and what channel they're used to. So if it's a very formal organisation that's used to reading long form, it might be more white papers. If it's more a younger, more video-oriented generation, then the videos, and it might be a combination of both. I think you definitely need the follow-up. You need to understand the decision-making unit within the client as well, because often, and we face this in sustainability a lot, the sustainability professionals will get very excited, but they may have limited budget. They may depend on people in finance or people in HR to sign things off. So I think it's important, a bit like that, not celebrating triumph too hard. If you've had a great meeting, there's still work to be done to get the whole decision-making unit bought in. So play the longer game, I think. Yeah,
it's often not a single person who's the decision maker, right? It's like a group of a collective that you've got to get on board. But if you can win one of them over, they become your advocate and your like spy within the business, trying to convert the rest of them to your side.
Yeah, one passionate champion is a great place to start. Someone who really believes that you are going to help them address their challenges and help the company achieve what it wants to do.
A bit more of a personal question. So I've got a 1-year-old, right? And I started my business when my wife was pregnant, and it's been like really hard to like do both of them successfully. 2 babies.
Well, yeah,
one's a real baby. One's I've got to keep both of them alive. One of them needs food. One of them needs cash flow, right? 2 babies basically. You know.
And a good lady to keep.
Yeah, exactly. The whole trifecta. You've got 3 kids. Okay, so you've managed to do it somehow. How do you manage time? How do you successfully build companies whilst successfully raising a healthy and happy family?
Great question, and really important question. My wife's amazing, is the number one fact. She gets so much done and is so supportive. I think time management is another thing, and that's partly blocking time off for the various different things you need to do, whether personal, looking after your own mental health through exercise or through other things, and then having quality time. One of the things that I often beat myself up about is not having enough time with the kids. But one of the realizations I've had recently is that it's not necessarily the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. I think shutting off from mobile devices is critically important. I've bought one of these K-safe boxes so you can lock your phone away for a period. And I find that the sort of mental freedom of getting rid of devices evenings and weekends, or even just for an hour, is huge. So.
Do you have you've got an Apple Watch?
So
you still get the notifications if it's important and you need to?
Sometimes, yeah, I'll mix it up a wee bit. So sometimes I'll go, device naked, as it were, and totally cut off. I find that really important on holiday. And then you have this sense of being refreshed when you come back that's hard to beat.
With the box, are you locking it with a key, or is it a code, or how
it's got a timer on it?
Oh man!
So you sort of turn it around, and you can decide if you want to not have access to it for an hour, for 3 hours, for 7 hours overnight. But and you might say, well, you could just turn it off. But to me, knowing that a device is there and associating it as I do with work means that it needs to be. I need to be quite firm on.
That's something that I need to get better at, and I know I do. But my wife points that out to me often, but I do make an effort to turn my phone off, leave it on the kitchen table, and then hopefully not come back 10 minutes later to check it. But I should get one of those boxes, and the timer scares me a little bit, because if something's urgent, I've got to run and quickly do it, but I guess I could always break open the box.
It's quite hard to break these open, pretty much impossible. I mean, I think we often think that everything is urgent, and it's not when it comes down to it. And I think what is pressing is, I know this is sort of often discussed about, but the mental health challenges associated with running an early stage business shouldn't be underestimated. Yeah. And I've definitely had times where I've let myself get totally overwhelmed and struggled with it. And I think that that would be one bit of advice to me, is that founders shouldn't underestimate the importance of looking after themselves throughout, because a lot of other stuff is a bit of give and take, but your health just needs to. Yeah.
Without your health, you can't have a business. Without your health, you can't have the family. You need to look after yourself. Fundamentally, is like everything. Everything stems from you being able to be healthy and alive and functioning, right?
100%. Yeah.
But so oftentimes we neglect the most important thing, for the other stuff. When in reality it should be the other way around, really. Yeah.
Definitely. And I guess you're a family man now as well, that it's like a team that you're trying to look after, because if you're really healthy but your wife isn't, if she's really struggling, that's not sustainable. Yeah. And likewise in the other direction. So I guess you're thinking about your team at home, you're thinking about your team at work. Yeah. You know, it's a tough time, as you're not there yet, but now I'm firmly in middle age. Like, you are concerned for a wider team, your parents maybe, depending on their age and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot on people's shoulders, which makes it even more important that you look after yourself, so you can serve your different constituents.
How old are your kids?
11, 9 and 7.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's a good range though. Yeah, because they're all close enough so they can kind of look after each other as well, to a degree.
It's a fun time. I mean, I think we're maybe getting into preteen behaviour in some instances, but for now they're kids, and it's just fun.
That's cool.